Hello, it's Jacoby, and for this video I thought I'd show you a headpiece that I made for an event that I recently had the privilege to attend. The event was called the Surrealist Ball, and it was named and designed after the original Surrealist Ball, which was held in the early 1970s. It was hosted by a very eccentric, wealthy Rothschild family and had guests like Audrey Hepburn and Salvador Dali and various socialites, lots of people from every industry from fashion and entertainment to various areas of business. And most likely things got pretty wild. This event, while modeled after that one, was thrown by members of a local charity, which I'd actually never heard of before. And so I got to combine two things that I love, being creative and supporting a good cause. I decided to challenge myself by using items that I mostly already had for two reasons. One, I'm not sure if this is something that I'm ever going to wear again, and two, the less I spend on the costume, the more that I have left to donate. Like many of my other headpieces, I started off with an Alice band. I have several of these just laying around. Some thick wire that was easy to manipulate with my hands, but would hold its shape. Wire cutters, some pink millinery netting that I had left over from my Alice in Wonderland steampunk style project, pink chess pieces from the same project, as well as the pink playing cards that I made, and some leftover pink cardstock. What I bought specifically for this project was this black ribbon that was on sale because it was left over from Halloween. I also found black and pink rhinestones that were both in the dollar section. I needed some spray paint, so I just got a little half can of hot pink, and from the dollar section, pink puff paint with a little glitter in it. These black hydrangeas were actually from a project that I ended up not doing, so I already had those. And the black roses were also just left over because I collect them. Not only am I going to use every single one of these flowers, I'm also peeling the leaves from the stems so that I can make the most out of what I have. For the base of my headpiece, I got this black satin sleep cap from my local drugstore. Yeah, there I am. Hi. Very stylish. These are the sorts of things that you wear when you sleep at night to protect your dew. The band felt a bit flimsy to me, and so I doubled it on itself to make it a little bit stronger. I knew I wanted my leaves to mimic a bit of a widow's peak and then follow my natural hairline. So using safety pins, I started to mark where I wanted those leaves to go and then set out separating my leaves by size and shape. Now, I only had one evening to make this thing from start to finish because the ball is the next day. So the perfectionist in me may have wanted to sew all this down, but I knew with the time I had, the smart thing to do was to hot glue it. I used vertical lines and stretched the cap every single time I glued something down just to make sure that the leaves would not pop off when I stretch it over my head, which is deceptively large, I have to admit. I then tried the cap on just to make sure that everything was going to stay in place, and even though it's hard for me to film the back of my own head, apparently, it looks like everything is working out fine. After covering a mannequin head with plastic to protect it from the hot glue, I went about the longest part of this whole process, which was gluing on the individual hydrangeas. It actually didn't take that long, but I did want to make sure to pack them in very densely so that you don't see a bit of the satin and it looks like my entire head is just made out of flowers. I did leave some space for my Alice band to fit as snugly on my head as possible because the top of the headpiece is going to be very off-center and I wanted it to be nice and snug. Now, hi, if this looks a little bit ridiculous, it should. It's surrealist, and also I wanted to make sure that the bottom of the cap balanced out the craziness that's about to happen up top. For a little bit of extra sparkle and texture, I glued rhinestones to the center of each flower before moving on to the next section. Now, I have to admit that what I'm doing right now makes no sense. I am about to cover this entire band with craziness and spray paint it, but for some reason, I think maybe I was a little tired, I started painting it with my sparkle paint. So yeah, you know, when you're doing things at the last minute, you make weird choices. For the structure of my headband, I'm bending the ends of my thick gauge wire into spirals to give it a nice thick base so that I can hot glue it down securely. I'm going to attach several of these large pieces, and I've already cut them to length based on my sketch, and those are going to provide the structure for the rest of the design. Now, if you're subscribed to my channel, and I hope you are, you'll hear me say a lot that I like to go into things with a very strong idea of what I want for the end result, but it's also important to be adaptable. So I have a tendency to play around with the elements as I'm going along, and I may make a few changes here and there. Once I have my first piece on and I know that it's secure, I'm repeating that process with the other pieces of wire. Overall, what I'm going for is a very Art Nouveau, very off-kilter design. I want it to be asymmetrical and something that looks off balance but is actually quite secure on my head. Using my sketch as a reference, I started to make the overall shape for the top of my headpiece. Now, I mentioned earlier that I'm using elements that I had left over from my steampunk Alice in Wonderland outfit. I decided to continue the Alice theme for this headpiece, but I'm doing it in a much more subtle way since this event does not have that theme. The overall concept is like a game of cards and a game of chess have been blown apart, and they're sort of flying through the air and swirling or streaming right out of the top of my head. Once my larger wires were basically where I wanted them, I started to fill in the design with the smaller ones. Now at this point, I am completely making this up as I go along, just doing what feels natural for the design. In a way, it's kind of like I'm sketching, but with wire, and just making little shapes to create what to me kind of looks like Art Nouveau stained glass. I thought this would be the best time to give what I have a try on and make sure that it is balanced physically even though it's off balanced visually. I really want to make sure that I can move my head comfortably all night and that I can talk to people without having to worry about this thing falling off. Once I was satisfied with what I had, I went back to my wire and started filling it in with more shapes. Once I'd finished shaping my wire, I coated every inch of the design in hot glue. The reason for this is to help the spray paint adhere. If I spray painted it directly on the wire, it would probably flake off by the end of the night. And I like to make things that can last, even if I'm not sure if I'll ever wear it again. Now I really get to have fun adding all of my final touches. Using the wired Halloween ribbon, I made a 3-tiered half bow. Because the ribbon is wired, I can manipulate it any way I want and it holds its shape. I did make one major change to the design. Originally, I said I was going to have a chessboard that looked like it was blowing to pieces. So it would start off with small squares and grow into larger and larger squares that were becoming more warped and shaped almost like two-dimensional, like tesseract kind of shapes. As I was placing them, though, I started realizing that I was making this piece look way too busy and covering up some of the parts of the wire design that I really liked. So I simplified it a lot. Sometimes, even with an outrageous design like this, less is more. Now, I know exactly where I'm going to put all my chess pieces and my flowers, So I just started doing that pretty quickly, and at this point it was kind of a race to the finish line because I'm definitely getting tired and I wanted to make sure that I could get a good night's sleep before the ball the next day. Using the last of the teeniest, tiniest leaves, not only to hide the hot glue, I also made it look like those chess pieces are growing more organically out of my head, like they're just bursting right out of my skull. And of course, since it's me, you can never have too many rhinestones. I love adding a little bit of sparkle and texture wherever I can, even if it's black on black or pink on pink, which I'll do later. Black roses are a signature embellishment on a lot of my costume and fashion designs, so I checked myself out in the mirror just to make sure that I was placing those in the right spot. As you can see, I think I'm pretty pleased with how it's turning out. For the final touch, I painted the large green leaves from those hydrangeas pink and used some of my sparkle paint to give the edges just a little bit of shimmer. And there you have the finished product. While makeup is not my strong suit, I'm fairly competent at smearing pretty colors on my face in a semi-attractive way. So the next evening I did that and put on my entire look and was ready to go. The event was gorgeous, just room after room of beautiful artwork made by a lot of local artists whom I hadn't had a chance to meet yet, and so I got to make some new friends as well as running into quite a few of my old ones. I really hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making it, and maybe you found some inspiration for a project of your own. If you're interested in more pictures from the event or info, that will be on my Facebook page, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Thanks again. Bye.